Your conference is set for this vote today on whether or not to open facilities. So tell us, what things are most important as you make that decision?
Well, we're set for a conversation. We've had a medical task force looking at all of the issues around our campuses, around what we're learning in COVID-19. Whether a vote takes place or not remains to be seen. We meet twice a week with ADs. We meet weekly with presidents and chancellors. So we're poised to make a decision. Whether that happens or not remains to be seen. The issues are health and safety of our student athletes, and that's a big picture perspective. It is young people who've had the foundation of their experience really pulled away in mid-March. What's the appropriate way to bring people back to campus? How do we pay attention to their health, make sure that they're in the appropriate health circumstances to come back? How do we have social distancing, the right hygiene, all of that present in our facilities? And that's why the effort to take time to study, to think, to communicate, and also to decide has been so important for this conference.
You know, Commissioner Sankey, I think in all of this, there's been so much discussion around whether or not you'd all be able to come back at the same time. There are a variety of different theories on that around the country. What is your thought about having some states and some universities able to return to athletic activity and others not?
We've had differences in activities before, and it's interesting how history is forgotten quickly. You go back 3 years ago, we had very different start dates for the onset of preseason football practice. The NCAA had changed some rules, so we had some teams that began football practice a week earlier than others, and that was a decision that happened. What's important from a common decision-making perspective are these health and safety issues. So the matter of checking student athletes over a period of weeks, asking them continuing questions, making sure that their health is in the right place. On the other side, from a common standpoint, making sure there are campus-approved plans, so the conference doesn't approve every health and safety plan, but we can identify some best practices and some standards with the knowledge that our states are opening up at different times. And all of that is a part of the care that we want to exercise properly, with the understanding that somebody may open a weight room on Tuesday for a small number of student athletes. Others, it may be Thursday. Another group may be the following Wednesday. That's okay. We're not in this ideal environment that we may have thought was ideal last year. We're in an environment where we need to adjust, adapt, and make sure that that health and safety protocol is appropriate on our campuses.
What do those best practices look like as well, Commissioner, as it relates to enforcing social distancing and these types of things amongst these student athletes that, as we all know, are young men and women who may have different plans about how they want to go about their business?
Yeah, so the first thing is you take a step back and say, before we get to activity, which is still out there at some point, we're not opening up the doors of gymnasiums or weight rooms tomorrow. And that's the first important part, is to make sure we take time, we make sure we understand what expectations are going to be in place, either from local authorities, from campus authorities, from state authorities. That's a healthy way to return to athletic activities. Our medical activity task force then focused next on the communication with student athletes, because there's a shortage of testing, because the reliability of testing is still a learning process for us all. The issue of diagnostics is a priority, and that's where the ability to have time to make sure the evaluation of health is at the forefront of the conversation. You then would move at some point, and again, this may vary from campus to campus, you move at some point into people occupying athletic facilities. We're seeing that happening in different phases for coaching staffs or athletic department staff members. Same thing will happen with student athletes. You can take the CDC guidelines, national guidelines, state guidelines, and then expand that thinking to each of our campuses, where they have limitations on access. They have temperature checks. They have a slow process for transition contemplated from workout to workout. So there's the appropriate sanitization of facilities. Those are things that we're all becoming accustomed to in our daily lives. Those are the same experiences that we'll see in our athletic programs starting at some point, I expect, in June through the summer, and then we'll see what what that means as we move later into the summer and into the fall.
Greg, I had, excuse me, Bob Bowlesby here yesterday, the commissioner of the Big 12, and he was talking about what will happen in the inevitable event that there is a player who tests positive for coronavirus. And he said if we have that on a Wednesday, we have to look at the possibility that that team won't be able to play that Saturday. What are your thoughts on that? The notion that if you do have something like that, what the impact of it would be on an entire team and I guess in theory on the entire conference?
Mike, I've been careful not to guess. You can go back and say, well, what do we know? What we know is in March, when that happened at the NBA level, everything stopped.
In fact, I had a conversation the day before the Rudy Gobert experience with an NHL president, actually Sean Henry with the Nashville Predators, where we were playing our basketball tournament. And he identified to me the what ifs if someone tests positive. You now watch what's happening in the Bundesliga. I've had already 2 conversations with other professional leagues this week to ask, how are you thinking about these issues? I'm going to rely on the asset of time right now, understanding that we're going to be living with COVID-19, and how we learn to live with COVID-19 will inform the exact decision you've asked me about. I don't have to project that at this point. It could be disruptive individually for a segment or for a team. If it's for a team, that obviously has implications on a season. But you've identified one of the massive homework projects we all have for the summer.
Yeah, another one of those projects is the fact that you've got to figure out some way to manage the fan side of this. And there are a variety of theories, a variety of models out there. What are your thoughts right now? I realize you don't have to make the decision right now, but what are your thoughts right now on fan presence in games in the fall?
Yeah, see, the way Laura asked that question means
You know, I've had other conversations because she knows the answer is I don't have to answer some of these questions right now. And that asset of time, which slips away every day, is important.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.